job. There's no, so you have to sort of, my strategy was not very complicated. It's not big. We have about 5,000, 6,000 students. It's not a huge university. So you essentially go to the Centre de Recherche, the research institutes that are related to social policy, and then you just try to do the domino game by that. I mean, I knew a lot of them that do, the ones that publish and get grants, sort of was comfortable with. Maybe the younger researchers, that was harder for me to dig down. But if you have that, if your university has that software, it's awesome. Because you can get really precise data on the research that's being done on your campus. So I'm kind of jealous. Because you would be, one thing that I have not spoken about, and I should have, is graduate students. Government, this whole turnaround time thing, I mean, to the point where your graduate student is capable of producing credible, and they are, master's, PhD, research, good, good supervision, good data crunching, good results. That's really interesting for government. We have, in New Brunswick, a small province, we're not a million, 1,600 graduate students. So think of the potential there. They're not all in social studies or humanities, but there's a lot of potential there. So, and for the graduate student who wants to eventually be employed, maybe within government, maybe within community groups, it's a whole world of opportunity. And that's, actually government is the one that really underlined this, that they thought, wow, we can. And for them also, it's keeping New Brunswickers in New Brunswick, that whole discourse of having them work on problematics that are New Brunswick or Atlantic Canada based. So that was, yeah, so identifying who does research within academia was easier for some, harder for others.
And I wonder, like, would SSHRC have a similar type of database about graduate students that they're funding?
Funding, yeah. Yeah, you could do a database search on the people that have received funding, yeah.
Okay.
For graduate students, I'm not sure, but for researchers, yeah, it's all online. Yeah.
So this is based in-house in New Brunswick, so all the people coming to the table are from New Brunswick.
Yeah, right. So
So
far,
has this type of thing happened anywhere else in any of the other
good
provinces?
question. Any people from Saskatchewan here? We sort of found something similar. We weren't sure how dynamic it was right now, but there was, it was University of Regina, and I can't remember. So the answer is essentially no. Saskatchewan and BC, if you want to dig this deeper, I would say go to BC and Saskatchewan. There were some micro efforts on more narrow issues to bring these three poles together. And obviously, the government that's been the most strategic, maybe for political reasons, but maybe not, is Quebec. Because the provincial government has put a whole, Institut National de Recherche et Scientifique, INRS, a whole provincial infrastructure for funding. And Mr. Gadfield was explaining this to us. Essentially, SSHRC looks to projects that are sponsored by these provincial, national, Quebec level projects, and they sort of match up funding according to this not filtering, but sort of sponsorship that's already been done. So, and these groups, these ENMS structures tend to bring community groups also to the table. So we thought, and what this also does is that you know that New Brunswick doesn't get their share of federal research money. Atlantic Canada doesn't get its fair share. It's a struggle. We find that smaller universities, we're not part of the group of the seven large universities. So it's also for us a way to position ourselves where we want to get more federal money, more federal grants. So Quebec we looked at Quebec, it's really interesting. We can't, at the level of Atlantic Canada or New Brunswick, we can't build all these Institut National de Recherche Scientifique. It's a wonder, I wish. It's a wonderful network, but it's just not realistic. So we're kind of a mini that on social policy. But other than that, no. And it's been the question we've been getting a lot is that do you guys want to, would your database get bigger? Why not go beyond that? And I guess the answer is we don't know. We're just
And is there in the future, do you think that there's an opportunity for international collaboration? So, for instance, community agencies or people that are working overseas in other countries, like literacy, I'm working with a group in Africa, right? And to be able to connect, because there's a policy thing, like their policies are not developed in literacy, and I have no idea what the policies are here in literacy. I have to admit, it's all new to me and relatively new to the field. But do you see it that it would be going?
When we've been working on this for like 2 years, like I said earlier, we were born in this last August. In my mind, it doesn't have that scope yet, but ironically, we're now a case study for SSHRC. SSHRC is looking at studying us, the network, over the next year, to see how this works. So that's kind of exciting for us. Somebody's going to evaluate or have us as a case study. And then there's a group of 8, I don't know the exact, but on an international level, it's Justin Bourgon, who is clerk of the Privy Council, who's now the Canadian representative, on this group of 8 nation panel that are looking at social policy, and we've become a case study for their group in, I think they're based in Sweden or something like that. So we're going to be research, which is a little intimidating, I'm not sure. Give us a chance, we just started, but so maybe we'll branch out. But right now we'll just want to be successful, at least in the process.
So if, let's say you're like I'm in the province of Ontario, like that's where I work in a small community, but I know that like our university has a literacy department, and I don't see any connection with that literacy department in our community group. So there's academia, and there's our community groups. And so that's one way to actually start talking, like bringing this type of idea which you showed to that literacy department and saying, hey, there's a group out there in New Brunswick, maybe you want to contact.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's not automatic, like all the
Yeah.
barriers, we spend half an hour on the barriers, it's not automatic, it's not that easy, but if you can convince everybody that they can take away something, so far,
Yes.
we've kept everybody at the table, they're coming to our forum next week, and then we'll take it from there, but if it was easy, it would have been done already. Other questions?
I just have a comment because I've done quite a bit. I am a researcher, and I find sometimes there's great work being done in the field, and in Newfoundland in particular, a lot of policy development. But one of the things that I've found that when we sit down around the table is how little we are informed about each other's research. Now, we do have the Harris Center. They are looking at trying to connect researchers to people who are looking for research in the area, but it's so large that I think sometimes that there's no go-to, there's no connecting in between. So, and again, one of the other things that I find is that often with policy research, things have to be turned around so quickly that what we're confronted with when we do come down and we start looking at policy development is a lot of referencing to government reports that have previously been done, which are very informative, but there is current research that's going on that would allow for more policy development to move forward. Like one example that I've noticed in this particular forum in looking at workplace literacy skills is the definition of literacy itself. And I think it's really important that we be able to define what that is, but if we look at it through a different lens, as literacy as a practice and understanding it's anything we do in our everyday life, I think that it becomes a little bit more, it's more enriching, more powerful, but also probably would allow for us to see what it is that's actually going on in people's lives and what they're challenged with. So just some of those ideas, and that is current research, but it's research based on a lot that's going on within the world itself, right? In the UK, Australia. So, that's the problem. That's a disconnect that I sort of just want to make a comment to, and I'm not really sure what to do. I mean, I found your presentation to be very informative and very good and showing how to bring these groups together, but I guess my question is how do we actually get past all?
Well, we think our success is going to be based on the actual projects that are going to bring these people together. I mean, the database is not going to keep us successful. I know that. Government funding alone is not going to keep us successful. We're going to have projects that work, that actually bring community groups. There's a development of a policy on youth in New Brunswick, and Politique sur la jeunesse. And all of a sudden, again, we're going to be used to bring, and right from the first meeting, I mean, people who work in Fredericton, Moncton is an hour and a half. Did not know that. Really, you have $50,000 to work on youth delinquency and how it affects engagement. I'm in Moncton, I don't know that. I mean, it's stuff like that. And I think that New Brunswick maybe has an advantage because of its scale. I think that it might be complicated if you go to at a national level or Ontario. I'm not sure. We'll see, but I think we're maybe advantaged. Also challenged by language and still some urban-rural stuff, but it's going to be projects, I think, that are going to drive our success.
I agree. I think that I see that very much. I mean, I think that we've started conversations within our university. We're starting to see that many of us have connections to the research that we're doing. But again, And to me, it's like, well, the impact is what's going on in the community, because that's where my work is. I mean, that's what I value what I'm doing, is when I'm working with community groups and I see that it's making, a difference for both of us. So,
Small victories like on youth, early childhood, it's not false. On early childhood and the effect of having kids go to francophone programs to maintain language and culture. Well, we finally, after like 10 years, have data that can prove that, yeah, if you choose a French daycare or French preschool, your ratios of keeping language and culture are like multiplied by 4. And those are community groups that drove these research, and academics sort of, I think that was the harder piece of the puzzle for this one, bringing academics to, okay, well, let's change our questions just a bit. Okay, that data doesn't exist, let's build a database, let's throw 10 students out there and start collecting information. And that's one that's worked. It wasn't related to us, it's pre-us, but projects that work. Thank you. Any other questions? Are we cheating on time?